And if you don't dispose of matters within the time frame, and everybody is now agreed that the system is collapsing, so what do you do? Some surgical steps have to be taken to remedy the situation.
Welcome to the Bombay Bar podcast. I am Naushad Engineer and I am your host on this episode. Today, we have retired Justice Dr. Ferdino Rebello, former Chief Justice of the Allahabad High Court and former Judge of the Bombay High Court. From his humble beginnings and activism in Goa, Justice Rebello has always been led by a strong sense of social justice and belief in people's rights. This eventually led to a judicial career focused on helping the marginalized and contributing to a better society. So let's really start with the beginning, as it would be. And, for someone who is following your journey in the law and going right up to your appointment as the Chief Justice of the Allahabad High Court. But you were born, I believe, in a very small town called Kunkolim in Goa.
I was born in a village called Kunkolim. Today it is a town. We are known in Goa as the village of revolutionaries.
Oh.
As our ancestors fought the Portuguese colonial rulers. So it is that village which I come from, and I share that ethos.
Did you always want to be a lawyer, or were you what is otherwise known as the accidental lawyer?
I always wanted to be a professional in my career. My first choice was medicine, which considering the cutoff marks I could not make. My next choice was law. But as I wrote to a friend when I joined law and I passed out, this was the ship I should have always taken because it was always meant for me. Studying in Government Law College, it was the time when Mrs. Gandhi brought in bank nationalization, and like every other youth, I was a revolutionary. You are imbibed by that passion of social justice, of doing right. So, to me, therefore, law, though a second choice, became the first choice. It was not something I just came by accident. It was a matter of choice. And I loved it and lived it every day of my life since then.
Right. And as you said, you're from a village in that sense of revolutionaries. I also believe that right from your student days, you were sort of an activist and you were always trying to, in that sense, promote social causes. Is that correct?
Not during my younger days. It's only after I joined Government Law College
as a law student.
That the first seeds of activism did develop. I met Mr. Dharmadhikari, the grandfather of our previous Judge Dharmadhikari. One day we went to him and we asked him a question. Dada, used to call him Dada. Why is it that your generation was not corrupt? And he gave a very wise answer. He said, perhaps we did not have that opportunities.
And I believe in 1977, once the emergency was over, several political parties joined together to form what then became the Janata Party. As a young lawyer, you were so taken up by these causes that you, in fact, not only joined the party, but even got elected to the Goa State Legislative Assembly. Is that correct?
I was an active participant, as you may say, in the JP movement through my trade union activities and other activities. To me, the emergency was a blot in our parliamentary system. And unfortunately, I could never understand ADM Jabalpur because as a young lawyer, I did visit the courts in Bombay. And I remembered Ram Jethmalani's matter coming up before a bench, if I'm not mistaken, of Justice Tulzapurkar and somebody. And they quashed. the order.
Right.
And like so many other courts also did so. But unfortunately, the Supreme Court overturned ADM Jabalpur. But coming back, I was on a playground holding some annual sports meet when some fellow colleagues with me from Bombay, who had election had been held in Bombay, came to Goa to meet me and said, "You must contest elections." I was never a member of any political party, though I had voted
Right.
once or twice, I don't know. And I was wondering who's going to give me a ticket. Then I was sounded whether I would contest on the Janata Party ticket. Now, the constituency which I was to contest was a Congress constituency, a predominantly Catholic constituency, where voters were mostly Catholic voters voting for the Congress. I contested. No money in my pocket. But it was the people's will. They worked for me.
Right.
And I won by the narrowest of margins. It was all a part of the movement that was taking place in the country. See, from our villages, we have people working in Bombay who had voted for the Janata Party in Bombay, who came down, and they were one of the they were the workers who really worked tirelessly to see that I was elected. So it was not money that won me a seat, it was a cause.
Correct.
And the people's enthusiasm.
And their faith in you.
And their faith in me.
Yes. And in your time as an MLA, there was a private member's bill, which I believe came to be enacted as law, which you were responsible for. Could you just tell us something about that?
In Goa, we have what is called a Munkar Act. We have in Goa what are called badkars, the landlords. And we have a category of persons called the Munkars, who were rendering them services either in their fields or in their coconut orchards or at their homes, and who were allowed to reside down there but had no protection. There was some protection, but not much protection. Even the Portuguese had given some protection. After liberation, Goa enacted the Munkar Act, which gave them protection from eviction and also made them owners of the house and small 3 meters around the house. Now, a matter came to the High Court, where the High Court held that the Mamladar, he was the judicial officer deciding these matters, revenue officer, had no jurisdiction to grant a declaration. Now, this was causing a lot of problems. So, I moved a private member's bill from the Treasury benches, Mr. Ramakant Khalap, who afterwards became a law minister in the Janata government. He also moved an amendment. But after seeing my amendment, he withdrew his amendment. And the Chief Minister, Mrs. Sashikala Kakodkar, she asked me to move the amendment. So I moved the amendment. It was passed. And historically, I believe it was the first amendment of any private member that was accepted by the... But that was the kind of relationship we had in the assembly. Though we opposed each other, there was always a consensus of understanding and
respect also.
And respect for each other.
Right. You were even jailed, I believe, once in that Ramponkar's, the fishermen's movement in Goa. What was, that's something which is...
You seem to have dug out a lot from my life. During the time, just before and during my term as an MLA, the Ramponkars, they are the traditional fishermen whose livelihood depending upon fishing by nets. Now, mechanization had started, trawlers had started fishing in the coastal waters. The result was that trawlers were catching away the large part of the fish, leaving them with hardly any catch. So the livelihoods were at stake. So they started agitation. I and my two other colleagues, we went around the villages of the Ramponkars to study their economic and the effect that is causing on their livelihood. And we did a real study, and we found that there was the owner and there were the workers. And payment was, the fish that was caught would be shared depending upon various proportions.
Right.
And that was their livelihood. Monsoon months, no livelihood. So this was directly impacting their livelihood. But at the same time, mechanization could not be stopped. But the real issue to me, even in those days, was this was rampant destruction of the fish species even during the monsoon period, leaving no time for breeding, overcatching of fish. So in the course of this movement, as I was then an MLA, prohibitory orders were issued on 144. So to make it a point and to highlight their issue, I broke the cordon with others, the fishermen who were along with me. And I thought the judge, like all other cases, would say, warn you and go. But this judge, for a strange reason, said, no, 3 days imprisonment.
My gosh.
I was in the jail
In the
for
jail,
3 days.
When the judge pronounced that you were to be sentenced to jail for 3 days, I mean, what really was going on with, I mean, what were your emotions like? Were you afraid? What were you thinking?
Really not. I was not expecting a jail sentence. But at the same time, I thought perhaps it may help in the better understanding the issue of the Ramponkars. And I was young. I became an MLA at the age of some 27 or 27, I think. And when you are young, you are not afraid.
So now coming to your days as a lawyer, I mean, we've now learned that aside from politics and the trade union movement and social activities, what were your early days like? Because I believe you practiced as a lawyer in Goa.
After I had passed out from Government Law College, I decided that I would go and practice in Goa. So I went to Goa, Panjim, now called Paniji,
Right.
where the JC's court was there. And I was practically practicing most of the time in the court of the Judicial Commissioner. I joined the chambers of Mr. Sonak, Justice Sonak's father, for some time. And thereafter, of course, I joined the chambers of Mr. S.K. Kakodkar, senior advocate. Mr. Sonak, in the very first month, asked me to argue a matter on behalf of some convict. An appeal had been filed, but I read the file and I found that there was no substance. And then I found that perhaps he could get the benefit of the Probation Offenders Act, which would keep him out of jail. So I read the act, I read case law on that, and I went and argued before the judge that the report of the probation officer must first come, and if only that results in a negative report, then can he be sent to jail, otherwise he must stay out of jail until that time. The judge was not with me. I tried to argue, but the judge was persisted. The judge was not with me. I was leaving the courtroom. I left the courtroom, went out. The court superintendent, we call them Shirisdar there,
Yes.
came running after me. Says, don't send your man to jail. Don't ask him to surrender. I'm keeping the matter again the next day.
Oh.
The matter was kept on the board the next day. And the judge then had a totally different view of the matter. He accepted the proposition which I was arguing, called for the report of the probation officer, which came, and it was in his favor. He did not do any jail sentence, though conviction was maintained.
Right.
So this was my very first experience.
Wow.
And there was still on the first matter of Goa Foundation on environment was the mining of sand dunes on the coastal belt of Goa. So I argued that matter on behalf of Goa Foundation before a bench of Justice Mota and Justice Kamath, if I'm not mistaken. We succeeded. So sand mining because nobody then had understood the effect of sand mining.
Right.
And these are sand mines, unlike Rajasthan, where they form and they disappear. These were formed over hundreds of years. So that was something that I could achieve.
So, Judge, despite being such a successful lawyer and as a designated senior advocate, why did you think of becoming a judge?
I was first asked for my consent sometime in 1992 or so. Justice Patel, who was sitting in Nagpur, he was also a Parsi gentleman, labor lawyer. The first matter was I was arguing between me and my former senior S.K. Kakodkar. And he was very strong in labor law. So he heard me and he heard Mr. Kakodkar. And every argument that he would ask, he would tell me, what about this judgment? He totally floored me. And then Desai was the Chief Justice of Bombay High Court. He said, we are proposing your name for judgeship. But at that point of time, frankly, my finances were not that good to accept judgeships. So at that point of time, I said no to the invite.
Right.
Of course, later on, I accepted it, some 4 years thereafter. So this was my beginning in the bar of the Goa Bar. I was also the president of the High Court Bar.
Right.
So I had good times in that bar.
1996, I think 15th April 96 is when you were appointed as a judge. And that's when you moved from Goa back to Bombay?
Yes, that was the time I moved to Bombay. I told my Chief Justice that I would not like to sit in Goa. And from Goa, I would have enjoyed to sit in Goa.
Right.
I went immediately after my appointment. Few days I went to Goa. I was sitting and some matter had come up. And suddenly I find somebody standing at the back of the audience, standing up. Person known to me, perhaps his case was there.
Right.
I said, this will not do. If I stay in Goa, if this incident happened, I can't go on always saying.
Not before.
So I told Justice M.B. Shah that I would prefer to be in Bombay. Both for the education of my son and also for Bombay had a bigger canvas. And Justice M.B. Shah brought me to Bombay.
Could you just, maybe tell us about 2-3 decisions of yours which were like important decisions which really affected society?
If I may enumerate, I will put them. The adoption judgment to me is one of something that I feel that I was worth my entire tenure as a judge. I was a judge working in guardianship, assignment of guardianship.
Right.
Only Hindus can adopt under the Hindu Adoption Act.
Correct.
No other community can adopt. So there were these children given in guardianship. And I found them playing with their guardians. So I asked those guardians who happen to be Catholics, what happens after they are 18? The guardianship goes off.
Right.
So that set me thinking, what am I to do? And whether I was right or not, I suo moto took up that issue. As a PL, I had no jurisdiction as a PL. I was a single judge, no jurisdiction. I took it up. That matter, I took it up. I heard everybody, including Solicitor General Dr. Chandrachud, now the former Chief Justice, Mr. Iqbal Chagla, and host of others who appeared before me. And Then I said the power of parents patria has been given to the High Court if we are given in guardianship.
Right.
I may have turned the law upside down to some extent, but I said I must do something for the children. And I said under Article 21, these children, the orphan, the abandoned, the destitute, have a right to life, which means a right to a family. They have a right to be adopted, and if adopted, they will have all the rights as ordinary children, born out of biological parents. That judgment, the state of Maharashtra did not challenge the judgment, so it became law for the states of Maharashtra, Goa, Daman and Diu. And I sent a copy of my judgment to the Prime Minister's office.
Why is it that you decided to send this particular judgment to the Prime Minister's office? Because that's not something which normally happens.
As I said earlier, these were directions issued by me in my capacity as parents patria. They were not even perhaps under Article 227 also I could bring that within that. But I was really not sure that I could legislate on this subject. And I wanted a surer footing so that the adoption done in respect of the children today would not come under challenge.
Right.
So I always felt that a legislation would better protect their rights because judges can pass to fill in the vacuum not brought in by legislation. Now, for example, Supreme Court issued direction 142.
Correct.
But these are temporary stopgap measures till such time as legislation enacted.
Right.
The power to enact is of the legislature, not of the courts. We try to fill in the gaps.
Right.
So that is why I sent the judgment to the Prime Minister's office.
Your experiences, say, as a young lawyer, and your activism, I think, is also, in that sense, crept even into your decision-making process?
It has. Whatever I learned in the field, whatever I learned in the bar, that was carried with me to the bench. See, ultimately, law is not passing merely a judgment. I believe it is doing justice. And how do you do justice? You take the case of a labor, workman versus management.
Right.
Those who appear before the workman are not well paid, not that well prepared, whereas management council well paid, well prepared. So there is a big gap, and therefore, if a judge knows his law on that subject, if is strong on that subject, he can come to the aid of these groups.
Right.
Not to break the law, but to make the law malleable, reach out, balance the equities. This is thing that you can do, which perhaps a lawyer who becomes a judge does not have this field experiences, will only look at the section of the law and try to read it down. So to me, it was different. For me, it was Mahatma Gandhi in actions.
Right.
Look at the face of the poor and see what you can do. So my whole judicial career, believe me, was how best I can help the marginalized, the poorer sections, without, of course, causing injustice to those who are before you.
Right. I mean, I don't know if you recall, Judge, but when I was a very, very young lawyer, I think I must have literally been about 2 months in practice, and I had joined senior counsel Jamshed Kama, who also used to practice predominantly in labor and service law. And I remember that I had appeared before you. And Mr. the other side really was the doyen of the Labour Bar, which was Mr. K.K. Singhvi, who was appearing for the workmen and the union, and Mr. Kama was for the management. And I remember that Jamshed had told me that, look, I'm held up elsewhere, just go and get the matter kept back. So I appeared before my lords. And I mentioned this, and your lordship said, of course, and kept it back to the afternoon. In the afternoon, again, Mr. Kama was not there. And he told me, now get the matter adjourned. So I went back again and I told your lordships that Mr. Kama was still held up elsewhere and that now I was requesting for some time. To which, to my horror, your lordship said, no, I'm sorry, but you should have asked for an adjournment in the first place. And you've inconvenienced everyone, so we must go on. And your lordships then heard Mr. Singhvi first. And I think your lordships must have seen the sheer fear and trepidation in my face. And I still remember you were so kind to me. You told me, he says, have you read your brief? Do you know what it is about? Just tell me what your case is. And for the first time, I think for about 20 minutes, you heard me. You held against me. But when I left court, I felt like I had won. I felt that, I had actually achieved something because I could stand up against probably one of the biggest seniors at that point of time. And it was all credit to how you handled the situation, Judge.
May I tell you, as a young lawyer, I received encouragement from the judges. And thanks to them, I am what I became. And I carried it to the bar. I carried it to the bench.
Right.
To me, when I saw a promising lawyer prepared, I knew this lawyer would have a future. I did encourage them. And you must have found in my court hall, there were youngsters who were coming and arguing matters.
Of course.
And some of them won matters which even perhaps a senior could not have argued, could not have won. I always saw to it that I did sometimes help by... So it was a matter of encouraging, because ultimately, if you don't help youngsters rise, who are the future of this bar, where would the bar go?
That's right.
So that was always my objective. And this was, I'll tell you, Justice Gautam Patel, in my farewell, wrote a blog. And he did mention that I spoke at a bar about the young lawyers who have come up. And to me, it was always a matter of we as judges must encourage youngsters who work hard and who appear before you, develop in them the confidence. You can't shake their confidence,
right.
Because once their confidence is shaken, then it becomes difficult for the young lawyer to rise.
Yes.
So that has always been my approach, and I'm happy that you were one of those who were able to stand on your legs.
And thank you, Judge. Thank you. Now, you were served a long time as a judge in the Bombay High Court. And would you say that there's any difference in the bar between, say, the Goa bar and the Bombay bar or the Nagpur bar, or is it...
May I be frank?
Yes, of course.
I come from the Goa bar. The Goa bar, if you compare various bars except the original side bar, I would put them up after the original side bar of Bombay High Court. They are that well prepared. But they are, if you use cricket terminology, all-rounders. Some of them become expert all-rounders, but most are all-rounders because they are practicing in every branch of law.
Right.
Maybe sometimes civil or criminal, but so they have a deep knowledge of subjects on every aspect. Now, when you come to Bombay, the original side, the jurisdiction that you are involved in are huge. The case law, the kind of work that a lawyer can get is something totally commercial law litigation, arbitration law, taxation. The world is yours. And promising youngsters can really rise. And the Bombay Bar has shown it. You look at its history,
Yes, of course.
the luminaries who have gone, who are long gone, those who are there, and those who will come after them. So it's a different bar altogether. It is one of the, I think, the Bombay Woodley Side Bar is the best bar. I don't know about other bars, but I know Allahabad,
Right.
so I can compare these two bars. The Bombay Bar is. The original side bar is exceptional. I don't mean that the appellate side is not. Appellate side also has good
course.
lawyers. But the kind of cases that come before them are something totally different.
Right.
So it is the subjects which make the lawyer.
Right.
And the Bombay Bar, to that extent, the specialists in Bombay Bar and the all-rounders of the Goa Bar, who are some of them are very good.
I believe you even did your doctoral thesis on judicial interference in arbitral process.
Yes.
And now, very recently, we've just had the Supreme Court's Constitution Bench verdict on the power of courts to modify awards.
Yes.
So what's your view? Is it that courts should really be interfering, or?
I have not thoroughly gone into the judgment for me to give my views. But my first-hand approach to arbitration is hands-off.
Hands off.
You appoint arbitrators of your confidence, in whom you have confidence that these are people who have the knowledge to decide that matter.
Decide.
Okay, your confidence is there. Apart from those who are appointed under Section 11 by the court, that's a different issue altogether.
Right.
The Act has been drafted in such a manner that courts normally should not interfere. If there are errors, Section 33, send it back for modification correction. Now this judgment has recognized that there can be severability. It is always my view that every claim is an award by itself. So you can always separate claim-wise.
Okay.
You don't have to set aside the entire award. Unless, of course, that patent illegality runs through the award.
Right.
I have not read the judgment, but then what happens, I'll tell you. The earlier judgment of Justice Chandrachud in the context of joinder of parties, companies doctrine, this.
Correct.
Now you are throwing open a whole jurisdiction which was not there. Once you open up a jurisdiction, ask people to be joined who are not parties to the arbitration agreement, what you are doing practically is frustrating the arbitral process. This may be good for international commercial arbitrations of a complex nature.
Right.
But in regular arbitrations, I think this field should not have been open at all. Because you will see now, as is happening in the case of fraud, whole idea derailed the arbitration process.
Correct.
By raising the issue that this is fraud and you can't decide it.
Can't decide.
Same thing is going to happen over here. So my personal view is, we as judges should try to confine ourselves to limit the delay of the arbitral process. Now, all that we say is international arbitration come to Goa. It should come to India. Do they really believe that they are going to come to India? Believe me, nobody wants to come. An arbitral award passed in Singapore, their courts will not interfere.
Right.
An arbitral award, ICC, SIC in London, nobody is going to interfere. But it's a rare event if there's interference. But we here, at the drop of a hat, interfere with awards. Now, who will come over here? Of course, there is a recent change that judges are now more prone not to interfere with awards.
Correct.
But I think that's a welcome measure.
Yes. No, in fact, I can say that, today when we argue Section 34 petitions before the judges today, they're far more focused in saying, tell me under which ground you are coming. Show me that there is something so patently illegal in our domestic arbitrations. And there's no reappreciation of the evidence or going into everything again. And now, like Justice Sundaresan is doing an excellent job of, actually saying, all right, fine, this is the issue. in X amount of time, please argue this. So I do think that approach now is being followed, at least in the Bombay High Court. But, talking about bringing people in arbitration in India, I remember, I'm quoting you. You had once remarked in an earlier interview that people have stopped believing in the judicial system and therefore they prefer to take the law into their own hands. Now, why would you come to such a strong view on this?
Perhaps this was post-retirement.
Post-retirement.
Yes. Experience the judges, whether it is in Bombay or in Allahabad, the criminal cases are rising. Civil cases are dropping. The ratio which was earlier there is now skewed in favor of criminal cases. And why is that? The stagnation, the disposal, people do not see that their civil cases will be decided in their lifetime. So take the law in your own hands.
Right.
If you take the law in your hands, the same system which derails civil justice also derails criminal justice. At the end of the system, no witnesses are available, or witnesses are forgotten, or witnesses are dead. So you have taken the law in your own hands and you have succeeded.
Right.
Now, with this kind of mindset, this is what is happening. So my request in the sense to those who either in the High Courts and the Supreme Courts, litigation must be reduced. Frivolous matters, there has to be cost imposed. Give effect to the provisions of cost in the CPC.
Right.
And you will see a dramatic decrease in the number of litigation. My personal experience, on the appellate side, there is to be review petitions by the hundreds. We used to hear in the afternoon, because not a regular court time. After lunch, we used to hear them in chambers.
Right.
I started imposing costs. Not much, 5,000-10,000 rupees, but to the appellate side, this is a large amount of money. Review petitions disappeared, except for genuine one or two matters.
One or two. Right.
So there is something there is something you can't say, but then this has to be uniformly applied. I thought of applying it, but then I said, I can't be the only judge left out. And then the bar saying that this is not a good judge and those who don't impose costs. So it must be uniformly applied. And you see there is a 2% filing increase every year in the Bombay High Court. Now, how are you going to meet that?
Correct, especially with the shortage of judges that we have.
And if you don't dispose of matters within the time frame, and everybody is now agreed that the system is collapsing, so what do you do? Some surgical steps have to be taken to remedy the situation.
Right. So now if we can move on. After your stint as a judge in the Bombay High Court, you were then elevated as the Chief Justice of the Allahabad High Court, which is the largest high court in our country. What was that like, as in the additional pressure that you faced as being aside from all the judicial function, there's obviously so much more administrative work also that comes in.
I assumed office just before sometime in June, 15 June, if I'm not, or something around that part. The vacation was just over, and within 3 days of my taking oath, the court started. My first meeting of the administrative committee was after about 15 days or 21 days. And within 1 hour, the meeting was over. One judge, senior judge in the committee, looked up and said, "Sir, we thought we had to wait till midnight." I said, "Why?" So it's a past experience. I laughed to myself. You see, ultimately, if you have a grip on the subject, if you would take the views of your judges, things can be done. And you can dispose of and everything can move. So that was my first experience. The the Bar Council of India threatened a strike on behalf of judges of this district judiciary that their vacations were not been, they did not have vacations. Now I said, let's not have a strike. I held a meeting of my district judge with my senior judges. I appointed a committee of senior judges, and we fixed the working days. Like the High Court is 210 days. Bombay, we have working days for judges. Similarly, I worked out the working days for my judicial officers in Allahabad, in the state of UP. Third thing was, see, High Court judges come from the bar and from the district judges.
Correct.
Now, the seniority of district judges was stalled for a long time. Matters were pending in the courts. Matters were going to Supreme Court, coming down. And I had only 10 judges' names to be recommended. The rest of it was blocked because seniority list was not finalized. So I appointed a special committee. I constituted a special bench of judges conversant with service law. I would have heard it myself, but it was in Lucknow, so I could not spare that going to Lucknow. The matter was heard, disposed of, and I called a meeting of the administrative committee of my High Court on the last day before I demitted office. The full court accepted the judgments, the decision of the judgment. Some judges had some reservations, but I did point out to them, I said, ultimately, somewhere we have to put a lid on this, at least in here, in UP. If somebody is aggrieved, let them go to the Supreme Court, but we must have judges coming to the High Court, otherwise we can't run the institution. And then, after this was over, one of my senior judges said to me, so if it was not for you, this would not have happened. So to me, this was a great tribute that I could bring my colleagues together and work. And most importantly, there was no strike in Allahabad High Court, at least in Allahabad during my tenure. In Lucknow, it happened one day because of some incident, but by and large, there were no strike. I take pride in that fact.
Yes.
And this was because I did meet the bar. I spoke to the bar. I understood their grievances. And I visited about 40 districts in Uttar Pradesh. Practically every Friday evening, I would leave to visit a district. Saturday, I would hold meetings with the judges, with the bar, trying to understand their views, forming committees to address their views. See, we had in Kanpur lawyers coming to the courts with revolvers in their pockets.
My gosh.
And strikes every other day. I had a good district judge down there, Justice Rebello, who became thereafter a judge. I recommended his name. I went down there. I addressed the bar. I said, whatever your issues are, this is the committee, come to them. Please don't go on strike. The next time I visited them after 6 months, the president got up on the bar, said, sir, we have listened to you. We have not gone on a strike. Now, to me, this was some changes that I could effect, which otherwise possibly if I had not visited those district judges, district courts, could not happen. Of course, and then he says, this is mostly on that. There are many other things which I did. But the most important was the stopping the mining in the Ganga without environmental clearance. There was massive mining of sand, but yet I did not stop the industry. I said, yes, ban it, but I will allow you up to, judgment was somewhere in March or so. I said up to month of May you can go ahead, then the monsoon period. But by September you must get your licenses. If you don't get a license by September, then you can't operate. So the idea was to balance that there's no shortage of raw material in the market At the same time, the environmental cost should not continue.
Right.
So I think this is what we as judges should do. We can't all of a sudden stop something, balance it,
Regulate.
balance it, regulate it, so that unless of course it is totally illegal and can't be taken back,
Can't be.
as I did in the case of the forest case of Goa. I said without pre-license you can't go in the forest and construct.
Correct. So I just want to say thank you so much, Judge. I mean, for sharing your wisdom, your experiences, and I'm sure that anyone who is watching and hearing us will be truly inspired by your story, as I know I am. The fact that right from your young days as a student, you have always stood up for those who can't stand for themselves.
Before parting, may I add a few words?
Of course.
I was a senior lawyer when I became a judge. Now, you pose a question, after being a senior lawyer, why become a judge? See, I think every senior lawyer in Bombay must also pose to themselves the question. By the time you are senior lawyers and a few thereafter, at least in Bombay, money is not, I think, the issue. There are sufficient money in your bank accounts. Some at least must think in terms of contributing and joining the judiciary. And why I say so is not because that those who are coming out are not good judges. But it does help in a long way to maintain the traditions of this court. You go to Delhi, senior lawyers are taking judgeships. You go to North India, senior lawyers are accepting judgeships. Earlier, senior lawyers were accepting judgeship. Now, here and there, very few who are accepting. So, I would request senior lawyers, think of this institution. And some of you must accept because ultimately, money is not everything in life. The joy when you sit on that bench and are able to look into the faces of the people and the bar before you, and the satisfaction that we have done something is much more than the financial earnings. And after you demit that office, there is always arbitration to look forward to, where you can recover whatever you have lost. So my earnest call to my senior colleagues in the Bombay Bar is, if a Chief Justice calls upon you, please don't refuse. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Naushad,
Judge.
for this interview, and to the Bombay Bar for having given, though I was not a part of the Bombay Bar, but as a lawyer, but I think with the 14 years I've spent with you on the
You're part
bench,
of our family.
I am a foster child to the bar over here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Judge. Thank you.